Do you love writing but are feeling creatively drained recently? Here are 4 easy to understand, easy to implement ways to overcome your writer's block. Welcome back to the Intrepid Emma YouTube channel, where we talk about copywriting, content marketing, and entrepreneurship. If that sounds like exactly what you need, then please subscribe and make sure that you follow me on Instagram as well, at Intrepid Emma. So we recently explored on this channel in this video here, and it will be linked down below, how to identify why you're feeling blocked, why you don't feel like writing. Today we're going to look at if you are a creative person who is feeling sort of drained and how you can actually overcome that, how you can bounce back from that so that you're able to write, whether it's for your small business, for your blog, for your passion project, whatever form of writing your creative expression comes in. We're going to talk about ways to nurture it and bring it back out of you again, even when you're at your most creatively drained. Let's get into the nitty-gritty details of how to come back from writer's block so you can start getting your message out to the world again. The first, I would say, most important place to start when trying to overcome writer's block is to start with something called the shitty first draft. You can also call it the crappy first draft or the stuffy first draft, but the actual term shitty first draft comes from a book that's over here by Anne Lamott, and it's called Bird by Bird. And in here she explains the idea of just getting your ideas onto paper. They don't need to be perfect. You just need to get it onto the page, no editing involved, and it can be as awful as it has to be. In fact, it's good if it's awful because you just have no expectations. You're just getting it on the page. Sometimes self-censorship becomes the issue for us, and we get in our own way when we want to write because we want it to sound perfect the first time. And the freedom of the shitty first draft is that it's not supposed to sound right the first time, but you get words on the page. And once they're on the page, it's no longer blank and intimidating, and you've started to express yourself. It's probably better than you realized, and it gives you something to at least work with. Sometimes it's easier to revise than it is to be super creative and write the first time. So if you just get those words out there, then you can do that kind of creative process of revising and restructuring and then looking at how you might phrase things differently. But it gives you a lot of freedom to just get something on the page. Here are my 3 keys to embracing the shitty first draft. Okay, key number 1, accept that it's about quantity, not quality the first time around. Just hit your word count. Do not stop yourself. Just write and write and write, more or less on the topic you're trying to explain, but just get those words on the page. It doesn't matter how good they are, it's all about quantity, the number of words. Really unusual advice from a creative person, but sometimes it's all you need. Key number 2, while writing your shitty first draft, don't reread and don't edit it. Finish the shitty first draft and walk away from it for at least a while, but I would recommend, even if it's a piece of paper, putting it in a cupboard, or, I don't actually have any desk drawers, so that's why I say a cupboard. Just making sure it's out of sight and out of mind, probably for about 24 hours, ideally, if you can leave it at least 24 hours. Sometimes a couple hours is all you need, and if it's a big project like a book or a chapter of a book, you might want to leave it aside for a couple days, a week, a month, just to create that distance. And so when you're editing yourself, it doesn't feel as emotional and you don't feel quite as attached to the specific words or the specific characters. It's a little easier to kill your darlings so that only the best stuff remains when you've created that sort of emotional separation that comes with time. The third key to embracing your shitty first draft is to quiet the voices in your unique head. So that means I recommend things that are really particular to you and what works for you. So you might have a meditation practice where you're able to start seeing the thoughts come up and letting them go, not taking them quite as personally. That can be really, really helpful. Other things I've got here on my little list is about making a deal with your muse. So I have talked about this on the blog before, intrepidemma.com, and Elizabeth Gilbert did a TED Talk a few years ago, and in fact I can link it down below, where she talked about the freedom of seeing your creativity as your muse, which is a concept that really comes from ancient times, thinking of ancient Greece and that sort of thing. So it wasn't all your responsibility if you didn't feel creatively inspired and you had something to kind of engage with and talk to. So you can imagine your muse is a third party outside of yourself. You can converse with them, and as long as you show up to the page and you say, I'm gonna write, then that's all you're responsible for, and it's up to your muse to actually give you the ideas and the inspiration. That can be pretty helpful to kind of, whether you actually believe there's a muse or not, to imagine that there is a third party that has some responsibility. It takes the pressure off of you, which is what a lot of the shitty first draft is about, is just releasing that pressure. Another way that you can kind of quiet the voices in your head is putting on lyric-free background music. You don't have to do lyric-free, but for me, I find it really, really helpful to not have other people's voices as well confusing the words in my head. I find it much better to have the kind of ambiance that I want, depending on the piece that I'm writing. So if I'm writing something related to the holiday season, I might put Christmas carols on, but they would be instrumental only. And that way I can kind of feel like I'm in the atmosphere, and it's quieter in terms of the voices, but I still have something to listen to. If you find that you really need to have multiple senses stimulated at the same time for creativity, music is a really great way. And then finally, you might want to try free writing. And that is where you grab a piece of paper, you give yourself a time limit. I would say 3 minutes or 5 minutes is probably good, and you just dump out anything that's in your head, not necessarily related to the thing you're writing, whatever's in your head that morning or that whenever you're writing. So for example, you might say, I just realized that I'm out of Cheerios and I'm really, really, really hungry. I wish I could eat more breakfast. I am thinking that today I'm going to write this thing. And you just keep going for the whole time limit, and suddenly it's got your mind flowing and thinking, and you're actually writing something on the page. And particularly if you're handwriting whatever it is that you're working on, suddenly the pages in front of you aren't blank anymore, so it makes them less intimidating. My second way that you can easily overcome writer's block is to embrace the outline. Now, you may be a seat of your pantser, someone who just shows up and starts writing from inspiration, and I would invite you, if you're feeling creatively blocked, to try playing with an outline, something the other direction. I find that my writing coaching clients, usually the ones who hit their milestones and are really, really satisfied with what they've done in the project, are the ones that most embrace their plan, their outline, and hit those milestones on time. I think it really frees your creative mind when you know, okay, I have to kind of, even if it's just like a couple pillars, I kind of have to hit on this topic, I'm going to hit on the second topic, and then the third one before I wrap up. It just gives you a little bit of structure to then play within. And it can take you from feeling like, oh, I don't know how to tackle this topic, it's too big for me, to, okay, I have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to focus on one at a time. I'm going to write to topic 1, I'm going to write to topic 2, and topic 3. And suddenly it kind of gives you a map or a game plan for how you're going to approach something that might feel too overwhelming. Oftentimes we get writer's block when we have a massive concept or a big important story that we want to tell. And again, always comes back to we have a lot of pressure and expectations on ourselves. And having an outline can help you calm down, have a vision for where you want to go, and take it one step at a time. The third way to alleviate your writer's block is to switch up which writing topic you're working on. Sometimes we're more blocked on a particular project than we are about writing as a whole. So maybe it's not as interesting to you, the thing that you have to write. Maybe it's another big overwhelming concept and you're feeling a little lost as to how to attack it. Maybe you're just not in the mood that day. Maybe you're not feeling inspired, but you know it'll come back another day. How can you speed up that process of feeling inspired again? Sometimes it comes from intentionally allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to shift your focus. And you can still be writing. You can still be productive, especially if writing is your job. Just switch which topic you're working on. So it could be you have 2 different blog topics that you can approach, and you write one blog post that's not going so well, you're feeling blocked. Okay, I'll work on the other one instead. Maybe I'll publish that one first. That could be an easy solution, but sometimes it's a matter of tackling a totally different project. And you could tackle something unrelated to writing, but I find it helpful to still stay in the writing realm because you're still going to get that flow happening. So maybe you have, again, a blog post you need to write, but instead of switching to another blog post, you switch to a totally different writing project. Maybe you write poetry on the side, especially if it's a different medium. Maybe it's handwriting that poetry. It can really shift your mindset and help you tap into that creative fire that you have inside of you. It can start generating new ideas, and you can feel refreshed when you come back to the project you're technically supposed to be working on. The fourth and extremely important way to get over writer's block is to refresh and reset. I see there being 2 key ways to make this happen, and that could be physical movement or sleep. So let me start with physical movement. Sometimes getting yourself in a different state is as simple as standing up and doing a ton of jumping jacks, or going for a walk around the block, or just changing your environment. You know how many times people come up with new ideas when they're in the shower, right? Sometimes changing your state in a physical way is really supportive to our creative mind, right? It's getting us to make connections in another way. It's allowing things to percolate in our subconscious while we do something else. And again, new connections, new insights are formed that we can then come back to our writing project and contribute. It's really quite powerful to get moving. And sometimes it's a matter of just getting yourself feeling more energetic, right? Maybe you're feeling a little sleepy at your desk and you know it's just because you've been sitting there all day. Okay, maybe you can again, do like 15 jumping jacks in a row and turn on some awesome music, have a little dance party, and then later return to your seat. You might even want to, especially if you write on your laptop, pick up the laptop, go to a different room. When it's not a pandemic, you can go to a cafe. Sometimes changing your atmosphere is also a big part of that physical change, that state change that happens when you start to physically move. So it really resets you. And that second key is sleep. So oftentimes I find personally the reason I'm feeling creatively drained is because I am overall drained. I just am too tired. Sometimes you might be awake because it's in the middle of the day or you've had a lot of coffee, but there's still some energy missing somewhere if you haven't been getting the right amount of sleep or if you've been working overtime or working too hard. As an entrepreneur and an early stage, and that's me and that's possibly very likely you, it can be really easy to end up working extra hours because you're trying to lay a foundation at the same time as you're trying to serve your clients or your customers. So I find it important to recognize when that's happening, try and create or enforce those boundaries, and make sure that the most important thing that doesn't go lacking is sleep. I struggle with it a little bit, but I find that when I get great sleep and I feel energetically refreshed that way, I am able to approach my creative projects with a much more excited eye. I feel a lot more creatively inspired. I am just in a better mood and it makes the writing feel better to me as well. So when in doubt, just go have a nap. These are just some of the cures that I use to overcome writer's block, and I find it works really, really well for a lot of my coaching clients too. If you want an easy to reference guide on how you can overcome it, then click on the link down below where you'll be able to grab an infographic I created for you. What are your tips for how to overcome writer's block? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. You might really be able to support someone else in the community. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you're excited about copywriting, content marketing, and entrepreneurship, hit the subscribe button and click the little bell so you never miss a video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!